So in 34, we said he's prohibited us from witchcraft entirely, and that is his saying, let no one be found among you as a sorcerer. One who transgresses this negative commandment is liable for stoning when volitional, a fixed sin offering when an inadvertent, and the regulations of this commandment have been explained in chapter 7 of Sanhedrin. See Parashat Shoftim, Mishnah Torah, Foreign Worship and Customs of Nations. I would like to see what when they say witchcraft, a sorcerer must, this is from the codes, a sorcerer must be condemned to execution by stoning. This applies when he commits a deed of sorcery. If, however, he merely deludes those who observe him into thinking that he's performing an act, although he actually does not, he's given stripes for rebelliousness. The reason is that the prohibition against sorcery is stated in the prohibition. There shall not be found among you one who practices sorcery. It is, however, a prohibition which is punishable by execution. Can I move this thing? My little icon that has your faces on it is right where this is. I don't know how to get rid of this. How do I get rid of you? Whatever. Okay. So he's not going into the details. What constitutes sorcery? We don't make efforts with any act of magic at all, and about this it is stated, there should not be found you a sorcerer. The content of magic is generally well known to all, that people do machinations without end with types of grasses or stones, or by adhering things that people use to one another. And some of them arrange these evil actions at certain known times or specific months that are fit for those crafts. The Torah distances us with total distancing from all these disgusting and ugly things because they are vanities. It is not fit for a holy people that hold to true religion to put their thought to these ugly things, but rather only to his service may he be elevated. As he will fulfill every want of his people for the good, and they're being sheltered by his great name, and they're placing their trust in their reliance upon him, his kindness alone. Since these matters are very remote and ugly in front of him, blessed be he, and there is a spark of matters of idolatry in them, he warned us about it with a negative commandment and made liable of stoning anyone who makes efforts with this and a fixed sin offering if it's inadvertent. It is also from the weightiness of the matter that Scripture warns the court not to forgive one who transgresses this more than with other sins, and it is stated, do not keep alive a witch. I've already spoken about the roots of this commandment on the negative commandments of do not keep alive a witch in the order of Eila Mishpatim. The laws of this commandment are scattered and placed in the Talmud, but mainly in the 7th chapter of Sanhedrin. Anyone who's a judge about it needs to know the wisdom of magic so that he'll be able to distinguish about an act that is done, whether it is one of the types of magic or perhaps from things done through power of nature in permissible ways. It's like the matter that they may their memory be blessed, said, anything that contains an element of healing does not contain the prohibition on account of the ways of the Amorite. I've already spoken according to my ability about this there on the negative commandment, do not keep alive a witch. These matters require great analysis, as behold, acts are found in the Gemara that we do not know them from their mouth, may they be blessed. We would have forbidden them from a concern about this prohibition, but behold, nonetheless, one who raises his soul to enter into these machinations and compares one thing to another from these things that they may their memory be blessed mentioned as being permissible, it is like one who opens an opening to go to Gehenna. So he does help us a little bit. This is the Sefer HaChinuch. This is written in the 1200s by an unknown author, but it has become very influential. He also goes through the different commandments of the 613. And so he does, I think, gives us some helpful information. He says that so if you do stuff like witches do, which is herbs and incantations, that would be witchcraft, but not all the time when somebody does that is it in fact witchcraft, and therefore you actually have to be studied in what amounts to witchcraft and what doesn't, and otherwise you can make a mistake when it comes to that. All right, that's good enough for right now.
Rabbi Karsh, did the Rambam like collect all these things from the Gemara and then number them? Is that how it?
Yeah, so it's not just Gemara. As we saw, he's oftentimes quoting from collections of Midrash as well, like halachic
Right.
Midrash. But yeah, this is how he's going to do his codes in general, which is he's going to, it's all going to be culled from the Gemara. That's his, in the introduction, his stated purpose is to render what is the final law, but his process is going through everything and then sifting through it until we get to the final law. So he's not sharing his own personal process, he's sharing the end result. But he is not claiming to originate, he's just claiming to be presenting the final result, but it's all based on what we would call the oral law, which for him meant the Mishnah, the Gemara, and the Midrashim.
But was it up to him to stress, like he's numbering a lot of the, he's parsing it, he's making these laws into
because they they have stated that there are 613.
Oh, okay.
So now this was part of his problem. He had this technical problem. He was writing, he was going to do his codes, and his methodology was going to be that whenever he talked about a section, he's going to talk about which mitzvos are covered in that section. But then he realized, looking through various collections, that they got them wrong in his belief, that the ones they're choosing are not actually the 613. So he decided he has to write a book about the 613 that is correct before he's going to be able to do his halachic work. So in order to do that, he had to have a system for determining how to properly identify which are the 613. Now, he's using, like we see, he's using the Midrash will say, will state the mitzvah, will state this particular commandment in such a way that he says the Midrash is telling us this is one of the 613. Like he's finding language that's already present somewhere that identifies this as one of the 613. So it's not just his own system of rules. He's relying on evidence from texts as well when he finally identifies it as a 613. And then he came up with his way, his order of presenting them, which somebody else might do differently. Like he doesn't do it parsha by parsha. There's the Sefer HaChinuch goes throughout, goes in order. So, and whatever's in Bereshis comes first, whatever Noah comes second, whatever, etc. He goes through the parshas in order. The Rambam doesn't. The Rambam does it based on, I mean, he tells us sometimes why he's picking this one to go, but it's typically according to subject matter. He's going through these things. So, but as he's presenting to us, he feels like this system, if somebody paid attention, this system would emerge as the system. In other words, it would have been the system they always meant. He's an originalist in that sense. He's looking for what they meant, but then he's going, oh, I see. So they're doing it like this, and they're picking this and not that. So they're interested in the root mitzvah. They're not necessarily in the branches. Like he's looking through everything and then finally telling us how the whole thing works. But he is not an innovator. He's just applying the system he sees that's already there. Like Michelangelo. He sees the elephant in the marble. He's just chipping away. That's at least the way he's presenting it.
But it is creative, right? I mean,
hugely.
He's not creating the law, but he's creating something.
He's seeing a system and order.
Yeah.
And he's showing you the system and order that he sees. It's actually, the Michelangelo reference is not a bad reference, or let's say an artist it's not so much their technical talent, they're sharing what they see.
Well, didn't he have to take the disputes and decide which one?
Yeah, he has systems for that too. He has, I mean, some of it, the Gemara itself does have, they call it klale hapsak, rules for making that final decision. The Gemara has some that they share with you, and then there are others that you could sort of put together by when you see the argument develop in the Gemara, even though they don't assert this rule, but you could sort of see them applying the rule. So it's something similar with making his decision. Like, for instance, he also takes the Jerusalem Talmud into consideration and will sometimes rule according to the Jerusalem Talmud's conclusion, which other halachic authorities do not, from his time necessarily. So there are areas where he's using unique strategy, but it, like this morning I was having a conversation about this with somebody, where we were talking about the disagreements. Like, for instance, one of the Rabbi Yosef Karo mentions 3 pillars of halacha, the 3 he most relies on. It's either Rabbi Yosef Karo or the Tur. Now, I'm not sure of myself. Either Rabbi Yosef Karo or Rabbi Yaakov, the son of the Rosh. One of them states that there are 3 pillars which they rely on, and they are the Rambam, the Rosh, and the Rif. So if there's a halachic discussion, and let's say those 3 agree with each other, then that's going to be the halacha, almost always. If there's a disagreement, he has to work out how to do it amongst them. Now, clearly there's other people he's taking consideration, but these are the 3 most important ones. So I was showing this person in the back of the Gemara, in the kind of Gemaras that you usually use in yeshiva, which is called the Vilna Shas, and it's really the model for almost all Gemaras that were printed since then. It was published like in the middle 1800s in Vilna. So in the back they have the Rif, but then they have these commentaries on the Rif. So we're I opened up above a Basra, so the tractate that we're doing now, Daf Yomi, and to a page on the Rif. So you see the Rif in the middle column, and then you see commentaries all around. So one of the commentaries is written by the Ramban, Nachmanides. I was trying to show him like how important the Rif is. If Nachmanides, who's considered one of the absolute greatest scholars on Talmud and on the Torah, he's considered to be like, if people come up with the 5 most influential commentaries on the Talmud, they will mention the Ramban. If they come up with the 5 most influential commentaries on the Chumash, they will mention the Ramban. He's amongst the most influential commentaries of all, and he's writing a commentary on the Rif. But why is he writing a commentary on the Rif? So he is provoked to write this commentary because somebody else wrote a critical commentary on the Rif. So and that's, his name is Zerachia Halevi, and he wrote a commentary called the Baal Hamor, and it was a very critical commentary on the Rif, and the Rif was such an important pillar of halacha and so revered. It provoked the Ramban to write a commentary to respond to the criticisms of Zerachia Halevi on the Rif. So this person assumed that if you have this kind of argument going back and forth, it would be about fundamentals like belief in God, and whether the Sabbath needs to be kept in the way, biblical times, the kind of thing you would think that if somebody's writing critical commentary and provoked into writing commentary to defend and all this kind of stuff, that it's about that, but it isn't. All of them represent a traditional approach to the Torah. It's just they would be called, very traditional. They just disagree, and they would say that the stuff they disagree with was huge, but it's not that. It's not that kind of thing where they disagree about the essence. So even though you could have like a bitter disagreement about issues among scholars, they're all considered to represent a traditional core. And this is the case with the Rambam and Rabbeinu Asher and the Rif and Rashi and Tosfos and the Rashba. There are contemporary people who, looking back at the Rambam, think that he's somehow deviating from tradition, and he represents something that they find familiar. So you could have conservative rabbis who think of the Rambam as a conservative rabbi, and etc., or secular philosophers who think of the Rambam as really he's really a secular philosopher. Like each person looking back sort of projects something, and they find echoes of their own beliefs in his writings, etc. But when it comes to the halachic system, that is not how he was viewed halachically. Philosophically, there may be people who argue that he strayed philosophically, but not halachically. Halachically, he's considered to be, representative of what is a core tradition. You can see, but let's say by the choice of Lubavitcher Rebbe to make the Rambam their core halachic study, or Reb Chaim Soloveitchik to make the Rambam the source of his Talmudic analysis, that they felt that he was very much he it wasn't even just that he sticks to the core, he is the core of the approach, and which would, to me, demonstrate his success at providing a product that really does seem to truly represent the ideas of the Talmud in his halachic work. I know there's issues that people have about his philosophical ideas, whether there are some who feel that they strayed from pure halacha. But it is funny, by the way, that I'm involved with, right now, I'm involved with two people that are going through the conversion process, just studying with them. And one of the important features of the study for a conversion with the CRC is the Rambam's 13 principles of faith. So it's so interesting. Again, you see it in the yeshivish approach to halacha. You see it in the Hasidic, as represented by the Lubavitch. You see it in the Hasidic approach to halacha. You see it in even when it comes to what you would call hashkafat hachayim, what is considered the necessary proper outlook towards life. You see him as representing the core, the core principles. And so how is this that he's representing the core? So I think it's a testament to his success at translating what you can find in the Gemara. But until him, there was no encyclopedic presentation of halacha. He had to do entirely on his own, and the decision of how to present it, the decision of how to word it, the decision of what to leave in and what to leave out. He had to make the choices, but he was, according to his introduction, he was distilling what he found, and a testament to the fact that he truly did that was that people who are completely committed to the sources that he was drawing from find him to do reliably that, to reflect it. So but yes, certainly the decisions are creative, and they represent a kind of scholarship where he is there on every subject at the highest level. So there's no subject where you hear people go, that he's very strong, like in the areas of, let's say, criminal courts. Criminal courts he's really strong on, but he's not so strong when it comes to the laws of kashrut. Like his area of strength is in this. No, he's like across the board. His decisions, even if they're not agreed with, scholars find them to be worthy disagreements with other halachic authorities. And you could have specialists in a certain area who spend all their time in this one area, and he's right there with them as a great, no matter what the area is, which is just, that's also a remarkable thing about him. They say this about Rebbe Akiva. The Gemara says about Rebbe Akiva that Rebbe Akiva could take all the information, and then they compared him to one of those coin machines where you put all the coins in one thing, and then the coin machine separates them into slots. So apparently they had those 2,000 years ago, and they compare Rebbe Akiva to that all the information, he could take all the information and then just start distilling it and in many ways, he's the father of the Mishnah. Like the Mishnah started before him, but the end product of the Mishnah was him and it essentially was his students. But it goes back to him, and they said that this was one of the things about him. He could take all the information and then do it, which you'd have to say, it seems like the Rambam was able to do. So there is creativity in the design of the coda, of the encyclopedia, his methodology to distill what he saw. But the end product, if it veered from the original, it would not be accepted. Now, there are areas like the area about, is witchcraft real, or are amulets effective, or things like that, or is there such a thing as demons, or where he does seem to deviate from the Gemara, from the norm of the Gemara, at least the way it's presented. But it didn't affect the way people related to the practical end result halacha that he produced, which meant that they felt he really did succeed at distilling it.
I guess related, why my question, why was he so concerned with this subject itself? I'm sure he does a, like you say, a comprehensive job on all of it, but like, is there something in where he was living at the time that made him dwell so much on witchcraft?
Like yeah, I don't know. I mean, it could be that it was that there was a lot of it going on in different places that he was at. See, the thing is, it's when I don't know how old he is when he's writing this. When he was writing his commentary on the Mishnah, he was young. When he's writing this, I don't know where he is. He might be in Egypt already when he's writing this. So I think he was writing this like in sort of the middle of his life at some point. So I think he would have already been in Egypt at that time. Yeah, I'm sure that somebody has written, more than one person has probably written a book about this, because he is so studied and so I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were talking specifically about witchcraft. I thought you were talking about the whole Sefer Mitzvot in general.
Well, no, that's what brought it up.
Oh, I
just thought that.
Yeah.
Something.
He does get wordy. Certainly on the previous ones, he got wordy about it and went into a bit of polemic about it. I'm assuming the Ramban is, I think, in his 30s when the Rambam dies, something like that. He's not the scholar yet, although he's already starting to become influential towards the end of the Rambam's life. But he disagrees. He says magic is real, and so he's living in Spain. And part of his thing about magic is real is you can just go out in the streets and you see it. So I'm assuming that it was prevalent in a lot of places where they had these when I read that thing, when I'm reading this book about the Indian, godmen and the magic guys, which is going on in India, I'm assuming that is what was going on for thousands of years. What you see in India in the streets is probably the same thing that they were encountering. Obviously, they're using chemicals and stuff. They're using some slightly different techniques, but that kind of thing. Now, there is a story about Shimon ben Shetach killing a lot of witches all on the same day. He had a bunch of witches hung on the same day. And I don't know what the details of that were. Now he's in Israel, and he's about 100 years before the Common Era, or a little bit less before the Common Era. So, what were they practicing? Was it like the stuff that you see in Macbeth, like that kind of thing? Sounds a little bit like that from the Rambam. That's what we were talking about, or from the Sefer HaChinuch. Yeah.
I guess that I would think that the reason he dwells on this and finds it so negative is because of his philosophical bent, more than right.
I think it would be very annoying. It would be very annoying even if you weren't a philosopher, because these people are showing. I'll be honest, just between us. That it annoys me. Like when I hear people are so committed to the politics of today, when they're so committed to it that it consumes so much of their brain power, and so much of the glasses that they're using to see what they see through their glasses. It helps them define good and bad. What is good? This. What is bad? This. Who is good? This. Who is good? That. At some point, it becomes annoying, because Torah decides what is good and what. I'm talking about people that are committed to Torah, a Torah lifestyle. But let's say somebody who's committed to a Torah lifestyle. Why are you looking to this to inform you about what is good and what is bad? The Torah informs you what is good and what is bad. Why are you relying on al tivtechu bin divim beven adam she'en lo teshua? Don't put your faith in people. Put your faith in God. There are all sorts of things that get sort of set aside. So I could imagine if somebody's going, every time something's wrong in their life, they're going to a sorcerer or to a witch in order to resolve it. I could imagine the same thing, even if you're not a philosopher. It's just like it seems like you're tossing away the Torah. You've got a new system. Your system is this witch, or this guru, or this that. You have a Torah. The Torah speaks to this. Yes, there are certain areas that the Torah does not speak clearly to, but you're filling everything up with this. And now who is your teacher? Your teacher is a politician, or a political analyst, or this, and all day long you're filling up the space that could be filled up with Torah and Hashem. You're filling up the same space with this. I could see being frustrated if you were a mystic, if being frustrated if you were any part of the 70 faces of Torah, and not just a rationalist, a philosophical rationalist. It says, especially like lining up to be healed from one of these people, and never considering that healing comes from Hashem. There's not, obviously you seek healing, but to forget that healing comes from Hashem, or looking to somebody to solve the problem of Israel's survival. So I'm going to look to this man because this man can guarantee Israel's survival. No man can guarantees Israel's survival. God guarantees Israel's survival. You're just making an effort. You're making an effort. That's all you're doing. God is the one who actually takes care of Israel's survival, not this person. And then to feel like all is lost because this person lost, and now who's going to take care of Israel? Where was God? Where is God? God is the one who's taking care of, that kind of thing. I could hear anybody being frustrated at if you had what I'm assuming they had, based on my deep exploration into Indian witchcraft. Okay. I look forward to learning some more tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
Rabbi, from what you were just saying, I was listening to an interview with David Friedman, who was the ambassador to Israel
Yeah.
under Trump. And he has written this book called The One Jewish State, and how the government should annex Judah and Samaria, and you sometimes what do? You have to make decisions, I guess, if you're in government, but who knows in this situation what to do.
I agree. There's decisions that were made that some people thought would start World War III, and they didn't. And it could very well be because a nutcase did it. So since a nutcase did it, people are so shocked that he did that it just didn't start World War III. If somebody else had done it, it may have started World War III. Like moving the embassy to Jerusalem, killing Suleiman. There are certain things like everybody's just holding their breath and going, "What just happened?" And then he goes, "See, it wouldn't have done it." It's possible that there is a way of understanding everything, that people are just sometimes, even the other leaders in the world and enemies of the Jewish people are just so stunned by some of the things he does that it doesn't have the natural response it would have had.
I know. I understand.
So maybe there is something to say about what you call the right hand, left hand. That there is, like, if you can have a crazy person out there and you're saying to people, look, you either have me or you have that crazy person out there, you pick. And maybe if they get a couple of years of the crazy person, they suddenly are willing to go some kind of normalcy. Who knows? Okay. Be well.
Okay.
But he's a crazy person.
Yeah. I agree. All right. Tonight online. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Me too.
Yeah, Liz too. Bye-bye. Bye, Estelle.
Bye, everybody.